The crash ship burned against the orange sky of Titan. Black smoke rose from its broken body like a dying breath. Kante watched it from the transport window as his squad prepared for landing. The alien vessel had fallen hard, and Command said there would be no survivors. But Command had been wrong before. "Listen up," Captain Yoon Hana said, her voice cutting through the noise of the transport. "This is a Keth nursery ship. Intel says it was carrying biological material. Our orders are simple. Clear the wreckage. Destroy everything inside. No survivors." Tay felt his stomach tighten. He had been a combat medic for 6 years. He had seen what the Keth could do to human colonies. He had held dying children in his arms while their parents screamed. He hated the Keth as much as anyone. But something about this mission felt wrong. The transport landed with a heavy thud. The squad moved out in formation, weapons raised. Tay carried his medical kit on his back and a rifle in his hands. He was trained to save lives, but war had taught him to take them too. The crash ship was massive. Its hull was made of something organic, like bone mixed with metal. Strange fluids leaked from its wounds. The air smelled sweet and rotten at the same time. Sergeant Chol led the way, his face hard and eager. Chol had lost his brother to a Keth raid 2 years ago. He never missed a chance to kill them. "Spread out," Chol ordered. "Check every chamber. Anything moves, you put it down." The squad split into teams. Tay moved with Park Woo, his closest friend since basic training. Woo was a big man with kind eyes that had grown cold over the years of war. He had lost his entire family when the Keth destroyed the colony ship Bizen. 10,000 people died that day, including Woo's wife and young daughter. "You okay?" Woo asked as they entered a dark corridor. "Just focused," Tay replied. They moved deeper into the ship. The walls pulsed with faint light, as if the vessel was still somehow alive. They found dead Keth along the way. Adults, their insectoid bodies torn apart by the crash. Tay felt nothing when he saw them. These were soldiers, warriors who had chosen to fight. They had killed humans. They deserved their fate. Then they heard it. A sound that made Tay stop walking. It was soft and high, like a baby crying. Woo raised his weapon. "What the hell is that?" Tay moved toward the sound. His heart was beating fast. They turned a corner and found a sealed door, still intact despite the crash. The crying came from behind it. "We should call Chol," Woo said, but Tay was already working on the door. He found a panel and forced it open with his knife. The door slid apart with a wet sound. What he saw inside made him freeze. There were 17 of them. Small Keth larvae, each one no bigger than a human infant. They floated in biopods filled with green fluid. Their bodies were soft and pale, nothing like the armored warriors Tay had fought. Their eyes were closed. Their tiny limbs moved weakly. One of them, the smallest, was crying. Woo stepped back. "My God." Tay moved closer. He looked at the creatures, these children of his enemy. They had done nothing. They had hurt no one. They were simply born on the wrong side of a war they did not choose. Heavy footsteps approached. Sergeant Chol entered the chamber with 4 other soldiers. He took one look at the biopods and smiled. Well, Chol said. "Looks like we found the cargo. Set the charges. We blow this whole room." "Wait," Tay said. Chol turned to him. "What did you say?" "These are infants. They are not soldiers." Chol laughed. It was a cold sound. "They will be soldiers. They will grow up and kill humans just like their parents did. We are doing the universe a favor." The other soldiers nodded. Woo looked at the ground, saying nothing. Tay thought about his training. He thought about his duty. He thought about all the humans the Keth had killed. But when he looked at the crying larva, he saw only a child. A helpless child who wanted to live. No, Tay said. He moved to stand between Chol and the biopods. I will not let you do this. Chol's smile disappeared. You are a medic, Tay. You do not give orders here. Step aside. I will not. The room grew silent. Every soldier stared at Tay. He knew what he was doing. He was disobeying a direct order. He was protecting the enemy. He could be shot for this. Chol raised his weapon. I am going to count to 3. If you do not move, I will put you down and kill these things myself. Then you will have to kill me first. Tay's voice did not shake. His hands did not tremble. He had made his choice. Some things mattered more than orders. Some things mattered more than war. 1. Chol said. Wu stepped forward. Chol, maybe we should wait for the captain. 2. Tay closed his eyes. He thought of his mother, who had taught him that every life had value. He thought of his father, who had told him that a man's character was defined by the choices he made when no one was watching. He was ready. Stand down, Sergeant. Captain Yunhana's voice cut through the tension like a blade. She stood in the doorway, her face unreadable. She looked at the larvae, then at Tay, then at Chol. Captain, Chol said, this medic is refusing orders. He is protecting enemy biological assets. I can see that. Hannah walked into the room slowly. She stopped in front of one biopod and stared at the creature inside. These are infants. They are Keth, Chol said. They are prisoners of war now. Hannah turned to face her squad. We will take them back to the orbital station. Command can decide what to do with them. Chol's face turned red. Captain, with all respect, our orders were clear, and I am changing them. Hannah's eyes were hard. Anyone who has a problem with that can file a complaint when we get back. Until then, these creatures are under my protection, and under Medic Kang's care. Chol said nothing. He lowered his weapon and walked out of the room. The other soldiers followed, their faces angry and confused. Wu put a hand on Tay's shoulder. You are either the bravest man I know or the stupidest. Maybe both, Tay said. That night on the transport back to Earth's orbital station, Tay sat alone with the larvae. Most of them slept peacefully in their pods. But the smallest one, the one who had been crying, was awake. Its condition was poor. Tay could see it struggling to breathe. He reached into the pod and gently touched its soft body. The larva made a quiet sound, almost like a purr. It pressed itself against his hand, seeking warmth. I do not know if you can understand me, Tay whispered, but I promise I will keep you safe. I do not care what you are. You deserve a chance to live. He named her Nari, after the Korean word for lily. It was a flower his mother had loved. A flower that grew in mud, but bloomed into something beautiful. Far away, hidden in the debris of the crash site, a small Keth drone recorded everything. It transmitted the footage across the stars, to the heart of an empire that had only ever known humans as enemies. The message reached Queen Velo within hours. She watched the recording 9,000 times. A human had protected her children. A human had risked his life for the offspring of his enemy. For the first time in 12 years of war, the Queen had a reason to hope. The cell was small but clean. Tay sat on the metal bed and stared at the gray wall. 3 days had passed since they returned to orbital station Incheon. 3 days since he had been arrested for insubordination. The military police had been waiting when the transport landed. They put him in handcuffs while the news cameras recorded everything. Now the whole world knew what he had done. Some people called him a hero. Others called him a traitor. The debate raged across every news channel and social media platform. Should a soldier show mercy to the enemy? Did alien children deserve protection? The questions divided humanity like a knife. Tay did not care about any of it. He only cared about one thing. How are the larvae? He asked when the guard brought his breakfast. The guard shrugged. Still alive, I guess. The science team is studying them. Studying them how? The guard did not answer. He left the food and walked away. Tay could not eat. He thought about Nari, the smallest larva. She had been so weak when he found her. Was she still alive? Were they treating her properly? The Keth were not like humans. Their bodies needed different things. If the scientists did not understand this, they could kill the larvae by accident. Later that day, Captain Yoon Hannah came to visit. She looked tired. The decision to spare the larvae had put her career in danger too. The tribunal is set for tomorrow, she said through the cell bars. The generals want to make an example of you. I expected that. Hannah studied his face. You do not seem worried. I made my choice. I will accept the consequences. They will give you a dishonorable discharge at minimum. You could face prison time. Tay nodded slowly. Captain, I need to ask you something. The larvae, are they being cared for properly? Hannah was quiet for a moment. The medical team is doing their best, but they do not know much about Keth biology. Some of the larvae are showing signs of illness. Tay's heart sank. I need to see them. Please, Captain. I studied Keth medical data during the mission. I know things that might help. You are a prisoner awaiting trial, and they are children who will die if someone does not help them. Hannah looked at him for a long time. Then she sighed. I will see what I can do. The next morning, 2 guards escorted Tay to the xenobiology wing. His hands were cuffed, but he did not care. He walked quickly, his mind focused on one thing. The larvae were kept in a secure laboratory. Scientists in protective suits monitored their biopods. Data screens showed vital signs that Tay did not need to understand. He could see the truth with his own eyes. The larvae were dying. Their skin had turned gray. Their movements were slow and weak. The nutrient fluid in their pods had changed color, becoming dark and murky. What are you feeding them? Tay demanded. A scientist named Dr. Beak stepped forward. He looked annoyed at the interruption. A standard protein solution. It should meet their basic nutritional needs. It is killing them. Tay moved closer to the pods, examining each larva carefully. Keth larvae cannot process synthetic proteins. Their digestive systems are designed for organic compounds only. You need to use natural amino acids mixed with calcium carbonate. Dr. Beak frowned. How do you know this? I accessed captured Keth medical archives during the Titan mission. Their young require a very specific diet during the first growth cycle. If they do not get it, their organs begin to fail. That information was classified. And these creatures will be dead by tomorrow if you do not listen to me. The room fell silent. Dr. Beak looked at the vital signs on his screens. The numbers were getting worse. He turned to his team and nodded. Prepare a new nutrient compound based on his specifications. Tay worked through the night. The scientists gave him access to the laboratory equipment, though guards watched his every move. He carefully mixed the new formula, testing it multiple times to make sure it was safe. By dawn, the new nutrient fluid was ready. They replaced the fluid in each pod one by one. Tay saved Nari for last. She was the weakest, barely moving inside her pod. Her small body had turned almost white. Tay placed his hand against the glass. Stay with me, he whispered. Just a little longer. Hours passed. Tay refused to sleep, refused to leave. He watched the larvae constantly, looking for any sign of improvement. Slowly, so slowly, their vital signs began to stabilize. Color returned to their skin. Their movements became stronger. By evening, all 17 larvae were out of danger. Even Nari was breathing normally again, her small form floating peacefully in the clean green fluid. Dr. Beak stood beside Tay, looking at the pods with new eyes. You saved them. Anyone would have done the same. No. Beak shook his head. No, they would not. Most people wanted these creatures dead. You fought to keep them alive. That is not normal, Medic Kang. That is something else entirely. The guards took Tay back to his cell. He slept for the first time in 2 days, his dreams peaceful and calm. The next afternoon, Park Woo came to visit. He stood outside the cell, his face twisted with emotions that Tay could not read. For a long moment, neither man spoke. I have been thinking about what you did, Woo finally said. I have been thinking about it every day since Titan. And what have you decided? Woo gripped the bars. His knuckles turned white. My family died on the Bison. My wife. My daughter. She was 4 years old, Tay. 4 years old. The Keth killed her without mercy. Without hesitation. I know. So why? Woo's voice cracked. Why would you protect their children? How can you show mercy to the same species that murdered my little girl? Tay stood up and walked to the bars. He looked his friend in the eyes. Because those larvae did not kill your daughter. They were not even born yet. They are innocent, Woo, and if we kill them for crimes they did not commit, what does that make us? It makes us survivors. No, it makes us murderers. Tay reached through the bars and gripped Woo's arm. I loved your family too. I remember your daughter's smile. I remember how she used to laugh. And I know that if she were here right now, she would not want us to kill babies in her name. That is not who she was. That is not who we should be. Tears rolled down Woo's face. He tried to speak, but the words would not come. He simply stood there, holding on to his friend, struggling with a pain that had no easy answer. The tribunal took place the following day. Tay stood before 5 generals in a cold gray room. They listed his crimes: insubordination, refusal to follow orders, unauthorized access to classified data, protecting enemy biological assets. The head general, a stern woman named Admiral Moon, looked at him with disgust. You have shamed the uniform you wear. You have betrayed your species. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Tay stood straight. I am a medic. I swore an oath to protect life. I do not believe that oath has exceptions based on species. The Keth are our enemies. Those larvae are children. Admiral Moon slammed her hand on the table. They are weapons waiting to be used against us. You should have destroyed them when you had the chance. Before Tay could respond, a young officer rushed into the room. His face was pale with shock. He whispered something to Admiral Moon. Her expression changed from anger to confusion to disbelief. This tribunal is suspended, she announced. All personnel are to report to the command center immediately. What is happening? Tay asked. The young officer looked at him with wide eyes. A transmission just arrived from deep space. Direct communication from the Keth Empire. That is impossible. The Keth never communicate. They are communicating now. The officer swallowed hard. Their queen is demanding to speak with Earth's leaders, and she is asking for you by name. Tay felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Everything was about to change. The command center was filled with the most powerful people on Earth. Presidents, generals, admirals, and diplomats crowded around a massive holographic display. They spoke in hushed voices, their faces showing fear and confusion. For 12 years, humanity had fought the Keth without ever receiving a single word from them. Now the alien queen was calling, and no one knew what it meant. Tay stood in the corner, still wearing his prisoner uniform. Guards flanked him on both sides. He should not have been here at all, but the queen had demanded his presence. No one understood why. The holographic display flickered to life. The image that appeared made several people step back in fear. Queen Vila was unlike any Keth that humans had ever seen. She was enormous, her body filling the entire frame of the transmission. Her form combined the insectoid features of her species with something almost regal. Multiple limbs folded beneath her like a living throne. Her eyes, dozens of them, glowed with ancient intelligence. She was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. When she spoke, her voice came through translator technology that converted her sounds into human language. The words were clear, but carried strange harmonics that made everyone's skin crawl. Leaders of humanity. I am Vila, Supreme Queen of the Keth Empire. For 12 cycles, our species have been locked in war. Millions have died on both sides. I have ordered the deaths of your people. You have ordered the deaths of mine. This is the way of things. The Earth President, a gray-haired man named Han, stepped forward. Why are you contacting us now? What do you want? I want the human called Kang Tae. Every eye in the room turned to Tae. He felt the weight of their stares but kept his face calm. He is a prisoner, President Han said carefully. He violated military protocol during a recent operation. I know what he did. Queen Vela's eyes seemed to focus directly on Tae through the hologram. I have watched the recording of his actions 9,000 times. He stood between his own soldiers and the children of his enemy. He risked his life to protect larvae that he had every reason to hate. I do not understand this behavior, but I wish to understand. Admiral Moon spoke up. Your Majesty, those larvae were found on a crashed nursery ship. They were taken as prisoners of war, as is our right under. Those larvae are my children. The room went completely silent. Tae felt his heart stop. 3 of the 17 larvae that Kang Tae saved are my direct offspring, heirs to my throne. They were being transported away from our homeworld to protect them from a civil conflict within my empire. Your forces attacked the ship by accident, believing it was a military vessel. President Han looked shaken. We did not know. We would never have, and yet Kang Tae knew. Vela's voice softened slightly. He knew they were children. He knew they were innocent. And he protected them, even when his own kind demanded their death. This is a debt that cannot be measured. What exactly are you proposing? Admiral Moon asked. I am proposing a ceasefire. I am proposing an end to this war. But first, I wish to meet Kang Tae in person. I invite him to travel to my throne world as your envoy. He will be guaranteed safe passage. No harm will come to him. The room erupted into chaos. Generals shouted that it was a trap. Diplomats argued about protocol. Politicians worried about public opinion. Through it all, Tae remained silent, watching the image of the Queen. Why him? President Han asked when the noise died down. Why not send our diplomats? Our leaders? Because I do not trust your diplomats or your leaders. I trust the man who saved my children. He has already proven that he values life over hatred. That is the foundation of any peace. The transmission ended. Queen Vala's image faded, leaving the room in stunned silence. Tae was taken to a private chamber where President Han and Admiral Moon waited. They sat across a table from him, their expressions unreadable. This is unprecedented, Han said. The Keth have never offered peace, never opened communication, and they want you at the center of it. Do you believe it is genuine? Tae asked. I do not know what to believe. Han rubbed his tired eyes. But we cannot ignore this opportunity. If there is even a small chance that we can end this war, we have to try. Admiral Moon leaned forward. You understand what we are asking, Medic Kang. You would be traveling into the heart of enemy territory. You would be surrounded by creatures that have killed millions of our people. If this is a trap, you will die alone and far from home. I understand. And you are willing to go? Tae thought about Nari. He thought about the 17 larvae sleeping peacefully in their pods. He thought about all the death he had witnessed, all the bodies he had failed to save. Maybe this was his chance to save more than just a few children. Maybe this was his chance to save everyone. Yes, he said. I will go. Captain Yoon-hana volunteered to accompany him as military escort. Park Woo surprised everyone by volunteering as well. When Tae asked him why, Woo simply shrugged. Someone has to watch your back. And if you're wrong about these creatures, if this is a trap, I want to be there to say, I told you so. Tae smiled. Thank you, my friend. Before they departed, Tae visited the laboratory one last time. The larvae were healthy now, their bodies growing stronger each day. He walked to Nari's pod and placed his hand against the glass. She was awake. Her small eyes opened, and she pressed herself against the glass where his hand rested. A soft sound came from her, a kind of humming that the scientists had never heard before. I have to go away for a while, Tae whispered. I am going to meet your queen. I hope she is as wise as they say. I hope I can convince her that peace is possible. Nari's humming grew louder. The scientists watching from nearby exchanged confused glances. That sound, Dr. Beek said quietly. According to our limited data on Keth behavior, that is the sound a larva makes when calling for a parent. Tae felt tears forming in his eyes. He did not wipe them away. The ship that carried them was small and fast. It crossed the border into Keth space within 3 days. Immediately, massive alien warships surrounded them. Tae watched through the window as the vessels escorted them deeper into enemy territory. The Keth homeworld appeared on the 7th day. It was beautiful in a strange way. The surface was covered with organic structures that rose like mountains, connected by bridges of living tissue. Bioluminescent forests glowed in shades of blue and purple. Rivers of silver liquid flowed between structures that seemed to breathe with life. My God, Hana whispered. It is actually beautiful. I expected something more. Monstrous, Wu admitted. Their ship landed in a clearing surrounded by towering organic pillars. Keth warriors waited in formation, their armored bodies still and watchful. Tae walked down the ramp first, his heart pounding. A Keth official approached. It was smaller than the warriors, with delicate limbs and soft features. It spoke through a translator device worn around its neck. Welcome, Kante. The queen awaits you. Please follow. They walked through streets filled with Keth of all sizes. Some were workers, carrying materials for construction. Some were nurses, tending to groups of larvae. Some were artists, creating sculptures from organic materials. The Keth society was rich and complex, nothing like the mindless horde that human propaganda described. Wu walked beside Tae, his eyes wide. They have children playing in the streets. They have families. Of course they do, Tae said. They are not so different from us. The Queen's Palace was a massive structure grown from living crystal. It pulsed with light that seemed to follow a heartbeat rhythm. They entered through gates that opened automatically, as if the building itself knew they were coming. And there, in a chamber as vast as a cathedral, Queen Vela waited. She was even more impressive in person. Her presence filled the room, radiating power and intelligence. Tae stopped before her and bowed low. Not because he was afraid, but because he recognized the dignity of a leader who had survived 12 years of war. Kang Tae, Vela said, her voice echoing through the chamber. At last we meet. I have many questions for you. And I have many for you, your majesty. The queen's eyes glittered with something that might have been amusement. Good. Then let us begin. The chamber was silent, except for the soft pulsing of the crystal walls. Tae stood before Queen Vela, feeling small beneath her massive form. Captain Hana and Park Woo remained near the entrance, surrounded by Keth guards who watched them with unblinking eyes. Your species has burned our worlds, Queen Vela began. Her voice was calm, but carried the weight of endless grief. You have destroyed our nursery ships. You have slaughtered our broods before they could take their first breath. For 12 cycles, we have known humanity only through blood and fire." Tay listened without speaking. He knew the queen was not finished. "And yet you, one small human, stood against your own kind to shield our children. You raised your weapon against your fellow soldiers. You risked your life for creatures you had never met, creatures your people call monsters." Vila's many eyes focused on him with intense curiosity. "I have watched the recording 9,000 times. I do not understand." "Explain yourself." Tay took a deep breath. "Where I come from, we believe that innocence deserves protection. Your children had done nothing wrong. They were not soldiers. They were not warriors. They were simply babies, born into a war they did not choose. My conscience would not allow me to stand aside while they were killed." Conscience. Vila tested the word as if it were new to her. "This is a human concept? It is the voice inside that tells us right from wrong. And killing children is wrong?" "Yes, always." The queen was silent for a long moment. Then she made a sound that the translator rendered as a sigh. "Among my people, children are sacred above all else. A Keth warrior will die before allowing harm to come to a larva. Even in war, even in the deepest hatred, we do not target the young of our enemies. We thought humans were different. We thought you had no such values." Tay felt a cold shock run through him. "The Keth do not attack human children? Never. It is forbidden by laws older than our empire. We assumed humans followed no such laws. We assumed you were creatures of pure violence, without honor or mercy. We believed the same about you." Another silence fell between them. Tay thought about all the propaganda he had heard since the war began. The Keth were monsters. The Keth were insects without feelings. The Keth killed without reason or remorse. How much of it was true? How much was lies designed to make killing easier? "Your Majesty," Tay said carefully, "if neither side has been targeting children, then who is responsible for the attacks on nurseries and colonies?" Vela's form shifted, her many limbs adjusting with agitation. "This is the question that haunts me. There are forces within my empire that wish this war to continue forever. A faction led by War Commander Gol believes that humanity must be exterminated completely. It is possible that Gol has committed acts that were blamed on your people. We have similar factions in our military, leaders who want total victory at any cost. Then perhaps our true enemies are not each other." Vila leaned closer, her massive head filling Tay's vision. "I did not summon you here merely to satisfy my curiosity. I summoned you because I believe peace is possible. But it will not be easy." Over the next several days, Tay was given freedom to explore the Keth throne world. Guards followed at a distance, but they did not restrict his movement. Captain Hannah and Park Woo accompanied him everywhere, their eyes constantly watching for threats. What they discovered challenged everything they thought they knew. The Keth had art. They created sculptures from organic materials that told stories of their history. They had music, complex harmonies that multiple Keth would perform together in perfect synchronization. They had philosophy, debating questions about existence and meaning just as humans did. "Look at this," Hannah whispered as they passed through a nursery district. Keth workers moved gently among rows of biopods, each containing developing larvae. They sang soft songs to the babies. They touched the pods with careful tenderness. "They love their children," Wu said. His voice was thick with emotion. "They really love them." Tay noticed something else. Wherever they walked, Keth soldiers would stop and bow when they passed nursery workers. Even the largest, most fearsome warriors would lower their heads in respect. Why do they do that? Tay asked their guide, a small Keth named Sarah. "Those who care for the young are honored above all others in our society," Sarah explained. A soldier fights for the present. A nursery worker builds the future. Which is more valuable? Tay thought about how soldiers were celebrated on Earth, how medals were given for killing, not for nurturing, how different their cultures were, and yet how similar in the things that truly mattered. On the fifth day, Queen Vela summoned Tay for a private meeting. This time, no guards were present. They sat together in a smaller chamber, almost like two equals having a conversation. "My empire is fracturing," Vela admitted. "War Commander Gaul has gathered many supporters. They believe I am weak for seeking peace. They believe humanity must be destroyed before they destroy us. What do you believe?" "I believe that this war has taken too much from both our peoples. I believe that if we continue fighting, we will eventually destroy each other completely. And I believe that your act of mercy offers a different path." Vela's voice softened. "My children would be dead if not for you. The heirs to my throne would have perished in that crashed ship. Instead, they are alive, growing stronger each day under your people's care. This debt cannot be repaid." Tay felt the weight of her words. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to become a symbol, a bridge between our species. If a human could save Keth children, perhaps humans are not the monsters we believed. Perhaps we can learn to live in peace. And if Gaul attacks, if the war faction tries to stop this peace, then we will fight them together." Vela made the gesture that served as a Keth smile. "I am old, Kante. I have lived for many cycles and seen much death. Before I die, I wish to see something better. I wish to see my grandchildren playing in forests that are not burning. I wish to see the stars without thinking of war. Is this too much to ask?" Tay shook his head. "No, Your Majesty. It is exactly what we should ask for." That night, Tay sat alone on a balcony overlooking the throne world. The bioluminescent forests glowed beneath him, casting soft light across the landscape. Somewhere out there, Keth families were having dinner, telling stories, putting their children to bed. Just like human families on Earth. Wu joined him after a while. They sat in comfortable silence, two friends who had seen too much war. "I was wrong," Wu finally said. Tay looked at him. "About what?" "About them. About everything?" Wu's eyes were wet with tears he did not bother to hide. "I spent 10 years hating them. I blamed every Keth alive for what happened to my family. I wanted them all dead. Every single one. And now?" Wu pointed toward the forest. "There is a nursery down there. I watched it this afternoon. The workers were singing to the larvae. One of them, a small female, she noticed me watching. And do you know what she did?" Tay waited. "She waved at me. This little gesture with her limbs, like a child saying, 'Hello.' And I realized," Wu's voice broke, "I realized that she probably has a family too. Parents who love her. Dreams for the future. She's not a monster, Tay. She's just a person living her life." Tay put his hand on his friend's shoulder. "That is what war does. It makes us forget that our enemies are people too. I do not want to forget anymore." Wu wiped his eyes. "If peace is possible, I want to help build it. For my daughter's memory. She would not have wanted me to become something hateful." They sat together until the first sun rose over the throne world. A new day was beginning. And for the first time in 12 years, it felt like it might bring something other than death. Tomorrow, the real negotiations would begin. Tomorrow, they would start building a future neither species had dared to imagine. But tonight, two old soldiers simply watched the alien stars and allowed themselves to hope. The negotiations lasted for weeks. Every day, Tay sat with Queen Vela and her advisors, working through the details of a peace agreement. Every night, he sent encrypted messages back to Earth, updating the human leadership on their progress. The proposal was ambitious. A complete ceasefire along all battle lines. Exchange of prisoners on both sides. Establishment of a neutral zone where neither species could deploy weapons. Joint patrols to prevent rogue attacks. And eventually, the beginning of trade and cultural exchange. Not everyone was happy. On Earth, Admiral Moon led a faction of military leaders who opposed any peace. The Keth cannot be trusted, she argued in transmission after transmission. This is a trick to buy time while they rebuild their forces. We should be pressing our advantage, not making deals. Admiral Dong was even more extreme. Every Keth we let live today will become an enemy tomorrow. The only peace is complete victory. We should reject this proposal and launch a full assault on their homeworld. Tay listened to these arguments with growing frustration. They do not understand, he told Captain Hana after one particularly difficult session. They have not been here. They have not seen what I have seen. Change is hard, Hana replied, especially for people who have built their entire careers on war. The Keth had their own opposition. War Commander Gaul made no secret of his hatred for the peace process. He was a massive warrior, heavily armored, with scars covering his body from decades of combat. He had risen through the ranks by killing humans, and he had no intention of stopping. The Queen grows weak in her old age, Gaul declared to his followers. She allows a human to walk freely through our sacred city. She speaks of peace with creatures who have butchered our children. This is betrayal of the highest order. Tay met Gaul only once during a formal ceremony. The war commander stared at him with undisguised hatred. Enjoy your time here, human, Gaul said. It will not last. I hope you are wrong, Tay replied calmly. Peace would benefit your people as much as mine. Gaul made a sound that the translator rendered as a harsh laugh. Peace is for the weak. War makes us strong. You may have fooled our queen with your act of mercy, but you do not fool me. I know what humans are. I know what you are capable of. So, do I. Tay held the warrior's gaze without flinching. That is exactly why I fight for peace. Despite the opposition, the negotiations continued. Queen Vela was a skilled diplomat, finding compromises that satisfied both sides. Slowly, carefully, the framework of an agreement took shape. Then came the night that nearly destroyed everything. Tay was attending a diplomatic dinner in the Crystal Palace. Keth nobles and human delegates shared a meal together, a symbolic gesture of the peace to come. Captain Hana and Park Wu sat nearby, trying unfamiliar Keth dishes and pretending to enjoy them. The attack came without warning. 3 Keth warriors burst through the doors, their weapons blazing. They wore the markings of Gaul's faction. Their target was clear. Death to the human traitor. The lead warrior screamed as he charged toward Tay. Tay dove to the side, barely avoiding a blast that destroyed the table behind him. The room erupted into chaos. Keth nobles fled in all directions. Guards rushed to intercept the attackers. Wu moved faster than anyone expected. He threw himself in front of Tay as the second attacker struck with a venomous blade. The weapon pierced Wu's shoulder, injecting poison designed to kill Keth warriors in seconds. Wu collapsed. His body began to convulse. No. Tay caught his friend as he fell. Wu, stay with me. The guards had subdued the attackers, but Tay did not care about them anymore. He focused only on Wu, whose skin was turning gray as the poison spread through his body. He is dying, Hana said, her voice shaking. The poison is too fast. No, I will not let him die. Tay looked around desperately. Where are your healers? Get me your healers now. A Keth medical team arrived within minutes. They worked alongside Tay, combining human and Keth medical knowledge for the first time in history. The head healer, a gentle female named Mira, analyzed the poison and synthesized an antidote from compounds in her medical kit. This has never been done before, Myra said, as she administered the treatment. Our medicines are not designed for human biology. There is no guarantee it will work. Try anyway, Tay begged. Please. Hours passed. Tay sat beside Wu's bed in the medical facility, holding his friend's hand. Myra stayed too, monitoring the treatment and adjusting the medication as needed. As the second sun rose, Wu's eyes opened. Tay? His voice was weak but clear. What happened? You saved my life. Tay's eyes were red from tears he had not bothered to hide. You stupid, brave fool. Mira made a sound of relief. The antidote worked. His body is accepting the treatment. Wu turned his head slowly, seeing the Keth healer for the first time. You saved me? Myra nodded. Your friend asked me to. And I believe all life is worth saving. Wu was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. I spent 10 years hating your kind. I blamed every Keth alive for the death of my family. And now you have given me back my life. Perhaps this can be the beginning of something new, Mira said gently. Perhaps instead of hate, we can build understanding. Wu reached out and took Mira's limb in his hand. It was an awkward gesture, but the meaning was clear. Thank you. I will never forget what you did for me. The assassination attempt had the opposite effect that Gal intended. Instead of destroying the peace process, it strengthened it. News of the attack spread across both civilizations. People saw images of Keth healers working to save a human life. They heard stories of how the two species had cooperated in a moment of crisis. Queen Vila responded with decisive action. She publicly denounced Gal and his faction, declaring them enemies of the throne. She announced that any further attacks on the human delegation would be treated as treason. Then she did something that shocked everyone. Kang Tay, she declared in a ceremony broadcast across the empire. You have protected my children. You have shown mercy where others showed hatred. You have proven that humanity is capable of honor and compassion. Therefore, I formally adopt you into my lineage. Not as a subject, but as a guardian of my offspring. In our culture, this is a bond deeper than blood. The chamber fell silent. Tay stood before the queen, overwhelmed by the weight of her words. I do not know what to say, he admitted. Say that you will continue to protect the innocent. Say that you will work for peace between our peoples. Say that you will be a bridge between two worlds that have known only war. Tay bowed deeply. I will, I promise. From that moment, everything changed. Tay was no longer just a human medic visiting an alien world. He was part of the Keth royal family, connected to their history and their future. His voice carried weight in both civilizations. His actions had meaning that extended far beyond himself. But the war was not over yet. Gal had been denounced, but he still controlled a third of the Keth military. And he had no intention of surrendering. The battle for peace had only just begun. The message from War Commander Gal reached every corner of the Keth Empire. It was a declaration of civil war. Queen Vila has betrayed our people. She has adopted a human into our sacred bloodline. She has abandoned our warriors who died fighting these creatures. I will not accept this shame. I call upon all true Keth to join me in removing this corrupt queen and finishing the war we should have won long ago. Within days, a third of the Keth military had defected to Gal's faction. Entire fleet groups turned their weapons against loyal forces. Battles erupted across multiple star systems. The Keth Empire was tearing itself apart. Tay watched the reports coming in with growing horror. Ships burning in space. Cities under siege. Families torn apart as some members chose loyalty to the queen. While others followed Gal, it was exactly the kind of destruction he had hoped to prevent. This is my fault, he said to Captain Hana. If I had not come here, If I had not accepted the Queen's adoption, maybe Gaul would not have had enough support. No, Hannah shook her head firmly. But Gaul was always going to rebel. He has been building toward this for years. You just gave him an excuse to act sooner. Queen Vila summoned her war council, and Tay was included. The chamber was filled with military commanders loyal to the throne, along with advisors and strategists. The mood was grim. Gaul controls significant forces, the Queen acknowledged. But we have advantages as well. Most of our industrial capacity remains loyal. Our supply lines are intact. And we have something Gaul does not: allies. She turned to Tay. I know this is much to ask, but if humanity were to join us against Gaul, the war could be ended quickly. Your ships, combined with our loyal forces, would overwhelm his faction. It was an enormous request. Humanity had been fighting the Keth for 12 years. Now the Queen was asking them to fight alongside Keth to defeat other Keth. The political complications were staggering. I will speak to Earth, Tay said, but I cannot promise anything. The negotiations with human leadership were difficult. Many politicians saw this as an opportunity to let the Keth destroy themselves. Why intervene in an alien civil war when you could simply wait for your enemies to weaken each other? But Tay argued passionately for intervention. If Gaul wins, the war continues. He will not stop until humanity is destroyed. If Vila wins with our help, we have a partner for peace. The choice is clear. In the end, a compromise was reached. Humanity would provide support, but not combat troops. They would send medical ships, supplies, and intelligence. And if the situation became desperate, they would send a small fleet to assist in key battles. The civil war raged for months. Tay remained on the throne world, working to coordinate between human and Keth forces. He barely slept. He barely ate. He threw himself into the effort with everything he had. Then Queen Vela made another request. This one was even more dangerous than the last. I need you to speak, she said. Not just to my people, but to everyone. Both species. I need you to make them understand what we are fighting for. I am just a medic, Tay protested. I am not a diplomat or a politician. That is exactly why you must speak. People are tired of diplomats and politicians. They want to hear from someone who has seen both sides. Someone who has saved lives instead of taking them. Someone they can trust. Tay thought about it for a long time. He knew that speaking out would make him a target. Gaul's assassins would double their efforts. Extremists on both sides would call for his death. But he also thought about Nari, the tiny larva who had called for him like a child calling for a parent. He thought about Myra, the healer who had saved Wu's life. He thought about all the innocent people on both sides who just wanted the killing to stop. I will do it, he said. The broadcast reached every world in both civilizations. Tay stood in a simple room, wearing plain clothes, speaking directly to the camera. No fancy production, no political slogans. Just a man telling the truth. My name is Tay. I am a combat medic. For 6 years, I fought in the war against the Keth. I have seen things that no one should see. I have held dying soldiers in my arms, both human and Keth, and I have learned something that I want to share with you. He paused, collecting his thoughts. War makes monsters of us all. It teaches us to hate. It tells us that the enemy is not like us, that they do not feel pain, that they do not love their children, that they do not dream of peace. But it is a lie. The greatest lie ever told. He held up 2 images. One was a human child, a little girl with bright eyes and a smile. The other was a Keth larva, small and pale and fragile. This is a child who died when the Keth attacked the colony ship Bison. Her name was Park Yuna. She was 4 years old. She loved singing and playing with her father. He pointed to the other image. This is a larva who was on the ship I was sent to destroy. I named her Nari. She was dying when I found her. She was so scared, so alone, so helpless. Tay's voice shook with emotion. Look at them. Really, look. They are both children. They both deserve to live. They both deserved a chance to grow up and find out who they could become. One died because of Keth weapons. The other almost died because of human orders. How many more children must we bury before we realize they all cry the same? The response was overwhelming. On Earth, millions of people watched the broadcast and wept. On the Keth homeworld, warriors who had spent their lives fighting humans began to question everything they believed. Gaul's coalition began to fracture as soldiers deserted his ranks. But the war was not over yet. Captain Yunhana led a joint human-Keth strike force against Gaul's main stronghold. It was the first time in history that the two species had fought side by side. The battle was fierce and costly, but in the end, Gaul's forces were defeated. The war commander was captured and brought before Queen Vela in chains. He stared at her with hatred in his eyes. "Kill me," he snarled. "I will never accept peace with these creatures." "No," Vela replied. "You will live. You will watch as peace takes hold. You will see everything you fought against become reality. That is a far greater punishment than death." But Gaul had one final act of defiance. As he was being led away, he triggered a hidden signal. Deep in space, a weapon that had been prepared long ago began its journey toward Earth. "It is too late," Gaul laughed. "I have launched the extinction weapon. Every human on Earth will die. And when they are gone, the war will never end." The bioorganic bomb was designed to destroy all life on a planet. It was the most terrible weapon in the Keth arsenal, reserved only for complete annihilation. And it was hurtling toward Earth at speeds that made interception impossible. Tay felt his blood run cold. Everything he had worked for, everyone he had tried to protect, all of it would be destroyed. Unless someone could stop it. He looked at Queen Vela. He saw the horror in her many eyes. And he saw something else. Determination. "Mobilize the royal fleet," she ordered. "All ships. Maximum speed. We will intercept that weapon even if it costs us everything." "Your Majesty," an admiral protested. "The fleet cannot survive such a mission. The weapon's defenses are too strong. Then we will die trying. I will not let that monster destroy what we have built." Vela turned to Tay. "You taught us that mercy is strength. Now we will prove it." The Keth royal fleet launched within the hour. Dozens of their most powerful ships, carrying thousands of crew members, racing through space to save a planet full of creatures who had been their enemies just months ago. All Tay could do was watch and pray. The extinction weapon moved through space like death itself. It was massive, a living construct of Keth technology designed for one purpose: to destroy all life on a target world. Its surface pulsed with dark energy. Its defenses were nearly impenetrable. And it was heading directly for Earth. On the Kethrome world, Tay watched the tactical displays with desperate eyes. The royal fleet was moving to intercept, but they were still far away. Too far, perhaps. "They will not make it in time," Captain Hana said quietly. "The weapon will reach Earth in 6 hours. The fleet is 8 hours away. Then we need another option." Tay turned to the Keth commanders in the room. "Is there any way to slow the weapon down? Damage its engines? Anything?" A young Keth officer spoke up. "There is a patrol group near the weapon's path. Only 5 ships. They can engage, try to damage the propulsion systems. Would 5 ships be enough? No, they would all be destroyed. But they might buy us 2 hours." Tay closed his eyes. 5 ships. Hundreds of Keth lives. Sacrificed to save a human planet. "Contact the patrol group," Queen Vela ordered. Her voice was heavy with grief. Explain the situation. Ask for volunteers. The response came within minutes. All 5 ships volunteered. Every single crew member Tay watched as the patrol group engaged the extinction weapon. They attacked with everything they had, throwing themselves against defenses that tore them apart. One by one, the ships were destroyed. But before the last one fell, they managed to damage the weapon's engines. The extinction weapon slowed. The Royal Fleet now had a chance to intercept. Hours passed like years. Tay paced the command center, unable to sit still. Park Wu joined him, still recovering from his wounds, but refusing to stay in the medical facility. "They are going to make it," Wu said. "They have to make it." The Royal Fleet reached the weapon with an hour to spare. 53 ships surrounded the massive construct, pouring fire into its defenses. The weapon fought back, destroying ship after ship. But the Keth kept coming. Queen Vila watched from her throne, connected to the fleet through a neural link that allowed her to see everything. She felt every death as if it were her own child dying. Tears streamed down her ancient face. "For the children," she whispered. "For all the children." One by one, the Keth ships fell. But they did not fall in vain. Each one weakened the weapon's defenses. Each one brought destruction closer. Finally, a single ship remained. The flagship, carrying Admiral Yoon, who had taken command of the joint operation. She guided her vessel directly toward the weapon's core. "Admiral, pull back." Hana screamed into the communication system. "You do not have to do this." "Yes, I do." Yoon's voice was calm. "This is what we fight for. Not victory. Not glory. We fight so that others can live. Take care of each other. Build something beautiful from what we leave behind." The flagship struck the weapon's core at full speed. The explosion lit up the stars. When the light faded, the extinction weapon was gone. Earth was saved, but 53 Keth ships had been destroyed. Thousands of Keth warriors had given their lives, all to protect a planet full of creatures who had been their enemies for 12 years. Tay fell to his knees. The weight of what had happened pressed down on him like a physical force. All those lives, all that sacrifice. For humanity, for a species that had spent years trying to destroy them. Queen Vala's voice reached him through the communication system. She sounded exhausted, broken, but also strangely at peace. "Do you understand now, Kang Tay? Do you see what your mercy has created?" "I see death," Tay whispered. "I see thousands of your people dying for mine. You see love, the highest form of love. You taught us that mercy is not weakness. It is the greatest strength. If we had let your people die, your lesson would have died with them. And we would have become exactly what Go wanted us to be." The war ended that day. Not with victory parades or celebration, but with silence. With grief. With the shared understanding that something terrible had happened, and something beautiful had been born from it. A treaty was signed within weeks. The Nari Accords, named after the larva that Tay had saved, established permanent peace between humans and Keth. Trade routes opened. Cultural exchanges began. For the first time in history, the two species started to learn about each other. Tay became the first official human ambassador to the Keth Empire. He split his time between Earth and the Throne World, working to build bridges between the two civilizations. It was difficult work, often frustrating, but he never gave up. Park Wu found his own purpose. He worked with Mira, the healer who had saved his life, to establish a joint medical initiative. They trained human and Keth doctors to treat both species. They shared knowledge that had been kept secret for years. They proved that cooperation was possible, even after generations of hatred. Captain Yoon Hana commanded the first integrated peacekeeping fleet. Human and Keth ships patrolled the neutral zone together, ensuring that the fragile peace would hold. She never forgot her cousin Admiral Yoon, who had given her life to save Earth. She carried that memory with her every day. Years passed. The peace-held Tay grew old. His hair turned gray. His body slowed. But he never stopped working. He never stopped believing that understanding was possible between any two peoples, no matter how different they seemed. On his 60th birthday, he received a special invitation. The United Species Council was meeting for the first time, bringing together representatives from both civilizations. And Nari, the larva he had saved so long ago, was giving the opening address. Tay sat in the front row, watching as Nari took the stage. She had grown into a graceful diplomat, respected by both species. Her eyes found his in the crowd, and she smiled in the way that Keth smile. 50 years ago, she began, I was dying. I was alone in a crashed ship, surrounded by the bodies of my caretakers. I had no hope, no future. I was simply waiting to die. The chamber was silent. Thousands of humans and Keth listened together. Then a human soldier found me. His orders were to destroy everything in that ship. His culture told him I was the enemy. His experience told him that my kind were monsters who deserved death. Everything in his world pointed toward one choice. Nari paused, letting the words sink in. But he chose differently. He stood between me and his own soldiers. He protected me when no one else would. He risked his life, his career, his future, all to save a creature he had never met. A creature who could not even thank him. She turned to look directly at Tay. For years, I wondered why. Why would a human protect a Keth child? What could possibly motivate such an act of mercy? I asked my guardian once. Do you know what he said? Tay remembered that conversation. He had been holding Nari in the laboratory, watching her grow stronger each day. She had made the sound that meant she was curious. He said that innocence has no species. That children are children, whether they have skin or scales, 2 limbs or 10. He said that the measure of a civilization is not how it treats its friends, but how it treats its enemies, and especially how it treats their children. Nari's voice rang through the chamber. By that measure, humanity proved itself worthy of the stars, not through conquest, not through power, but through the simple act of one man choosing mercy over hatred. She raised her limb in the gesture of highest honor. This council exists because of that choice. This peace exists because of that choice. And I stand before you today, alive and whole, because of that choice. Kangte taught both our peoples that the enemy we fear is often the friend we have not yet made. Let us never forget that lesson. The chamber erupted in applause. Humans and Keth rose together, their voices joining in appreciation. It was a sound that would have been impossible just decades ago. Enemies applauding enemies. Monsters cheering for monsters. Except they were not enemies anymore. They were not monsters. They were simply people, learning to understand each other. Tay felt tears rolling down his weathered face. He had never sought glory or recognition. He had simply done what his conscience demanded. But seeing the fruits of that simple choice, seeing 2 civilizations coming together in peace, he knew that his life had meaning. After the ceremony, Nari found him sitting alone in a garden. She sat beside him, her adult form so different from the tiny larva he had first held. Thank you, she said, for everything. I should thank you. You have become everything I hoped you would be. Nari made the sound of Keth laughter. I had a good teacher. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the twin suns set over the throne world. In the distance, human and Keth children played together in the gardens, their laughter mixing into a single beautiful sound. Tay smiled. His work was complete. The future he had fought for was finally here. And it was more beautiful than he had ever imagined.